Good morning, everyone. My name is José Borjón. I am the Consul of Mexico here in Utah and Salt Lake City for the last 3 years, and it's been a real privilege to work here with great partnerships like the one we have with World Trade Center. And today it's a very important and relevant date for us because we have the opportunity to talk about a subject that is relevant for both our countries, US and Mexico, which is the USMCA. What it means for Utah companies. That's what we're trying to accomplish today. And I think it's very important to remember the relevance of international trade here in Utah. Remember, almost 400,000 jobs are related to companies that are working and having international trade with the world, but specifically with Mexico. We'll see throughout this webinar but let's just put into the perspective that Mexico is the 4th export destination for Utah, and it's #1 country of origin for its imports. And this is translated in almost 50,000 jobs who are related here in Utah with trade with Mexico. That shows you the relevance, how we are interconnected, both countries, and that's what we want to develop today in our conversation. Bilateral trade, $5.4 billion a year. And just as a reference, this is greater, this bilateral trade between Mexico and Utah than what US has with other countries, for example, Uruguay, Paraguay, and South America. It's just a large number of companies and investment that is part of this very dynamic region, and that's what we're going to talk today. Obviously, NAFTA has been critical in the increase of this trade, almost by 13,000%. But now we have USMCA, and what we are looking for, all the countries, Mexico, Canada, and the US, is to get more continuity to this increase in trade, more certainty, more stability for trade and investment flows. And obviously, this helps the 3 countries. And having said that, I'm privileged that we have a very good high-level official from Mexico, from our Ministry of Economy and Trade, that I'd like to introduce, who will lead us into learning what is Mexico doing specifically on USMCA. Joining us today is Lydia Antonio de la Garza. She's the Director General for North American Affairs at our Mexican Ministry of Economy. And in said responsibility, she's in charge of all international treaties, monitoring, administration, and compliance of all the great network of international trade treaties Mexico has. Before this current responsibility, she was the Deputy Director General for North American Competitiveness Agenda at our Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She's also been at our embassy in Mexico, in Washington, D.C., as well as the Consul for Political and Economic Affairs at our Consulate General in San Diego, and worked in other responsibilities in our Ministry of Finance and Education in her career. And she is a career Mexican diplomat, a member of the Mexican Foreign Service since 1999. I need to share with you that we actually are from the same generation. We went to this diplomatic academy together. She would actually help me in the exams and the economy and trade exams because of her expertise. And she has a master's degrees in international studies and a BA in international relations from the Mexican Universidad Iberoamericana. As a commenter, we'll have the privilege of the President and CEO of World Trade Center, Miles Hansen, also joining us, and we're really honored and thankful for that opportunity. Miles, before being the current president of World Trade Center and doing an excellent level in promoting prosperity across the state, he worked for the White House and Department of State for over 5 years, and most recently as the Director for Gulf Affairs at the National Security Council. He's a speaker of Russian, Farsi, and Arabic, and has a hand experience in more than 70 countries, and is a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. So for us at the Consulate, a real pleasure. And Lydia, bienvenida to Utah virtually. We really hope we can have you here in the near future, but to us it was very relevant to have you, and please have us lead us into understanding what is the USMCA, what are we as a country, Mexico, doing, and what it represents for the region. Thank you, Lydia and Miles.
Thank you very much, Consul Borjón. My pleasure, Miles, having the honor to share this panel with both of you. It's a great experience that we'll be having today. I'm going to share PowerPoint presentation for you, just to explain how we see the USMCA from the Mexican government perspective. I know if you can see the PowerPoint. If yes, okay, perfect. So basically, you know, hold on, let me just adjust here and then start moving this forward. So, you know, whenever we start to talk about the USMCA, we really want to emphasize, and I know a lot of this information that I will be providing will be, you know, useful for you. Maybe, I'm sure that you are aware of how the USMCA turned out when it finally got negotiated. And now that we have it in place 84 years before, we, the Mexican government, are really looking forward to the USMCA as a means, as a tool for the recovery post-pandemic. You know? So we see the USMCA as a framework for certainty, for having clear rules and maintaining free trade. You know, we really, the Mexican economy and our international trade really expanded with NAFTA. I'm going to show you some information now to for you to see the progress of how we saw commerce improving, as Consul Borjón was telling us, in a very substantive manner. You know, we have 34 chapters, 24 modernized from NAFTA, and 10 new chapters. The 10 new chapters are highlighted in green. So I will refer to them briefly. They have to do with customs and trade facilitation, with digital trade. The labor and environmental side letters were incorporated as chapters of the treaty. We have things going on. Interestingly, having an SMEs new chapter incorporated, very important for Mexico, very important for Utah. I'm aware of that. And, you know, things related with anti-corruption, good regulatory practices, and macroeconomic policies. So these 10 new chapters are really what put the USMCA, you know, in the 21st century economy, at the forefront of most of all international trade agreements in the world. So when we talk about how we have improved and deepened our integration and how we will be able to achieve this, we see 4 pillars. You know, we refer to the USMCA as the motor for regional competitiveness, because it still provides preferential access to all products. It gives us regulatory coherence. It promotes investments. You know, it still allows temporary entry of professionals, and has improved the sanitary and phytosanitary measures and technical barriers to trade. There's lots of legislation on how to harmonize our phytosanitary and sanitary measures, and how to avoid technical barriers to trade. So we refer to the USMCA also as an inclusive and responsible agreement, because it incorporates SMEs, small and medium enterprises, because it has a gender perspective, not a chapter, but a perspective, because it promotes labor rights, anti-corruption, and environment. These elements, all of them, are really very important and are part of the priorities of the López Obrador administration in Mexico. And then always we insist on the certainty that it provides to trade and investments, you know, not only because we have a set of rules agreed by the 3 countries, but because we have mechanisms to settle disputes, no, state to state, investor state, or remedy laws. And always, it's good to know that you have, you know, the legal framework to resolve any controversy that may occur between the 3 countries, or between the private sectors of one country with a government. And then, of course, it sets a high level, you know, of rules for intellectual property, for digital trade, and for financial services. So I want to highlight like a couple of aspects of chapters of the USMCA. When we talk about how it facilitates market access, it has to do with modernized rules of origin. It has to do with self-certification, origin certification. We do not have, to go through a lot of paperwork, the private sector must comply in a self-certification process, It provides also duty-free access to agricultural products, and also incorporates textiles, handmade, traditional, folkloric, or indigenous handcraft goods, very important for the Mexican market, So that's what we are very happy of having under the USMCA. Other important element is the automotive origin regime. It sets standards and times and schedules for having labor value content on the parts of the automobile. It provides also regional value contents. I will not go through the whole thing, but I leave this PowerPoint presentation for Consul Borjón to share with all of you, with the World Trade Center, and with all the ones that are joining us today. But mainly, the important thing, it really sets like the objective of having products in the North American region, the labor content, the regional value content, and it also provides strict measures for having most of the steel and aluminum of the auto industry incorporated should come and should be from North America. So of course, it's an opportunity for the private sector, but it also sets a challenge, to advance in order to comply with these positions. So another one, interesting chapter has to do with customs facilitation and trade administration, and mainly it used to be it's a new chapter under the USMCA. And what it provides is the facilitation and expedition of clearance of goods and customs, and to make administrative processes more transparent. So the whole thing of having a USMCA in place is also not only provides certainty, but also increase competitiveness of the three partners. Very high standards on intellectual property are provided by the agreement, on patents and copyrights, trademarks, on geographical indications, and it sets the rules for internet service providers, and strengthens and prevents compliance, and gives sanctions to the industry who do not comply with what the agreement stands for. Very relevant, of course, is the new digital trade e-commerce chapter. In these times of closure and of pandemic, stay at home new life, digital trade has become one of the main sectors and one of the main pillars of our economy, regionally and nationally. And so the digital trade chapter will provide, really the ecosystem and the framework to benefit from digital trade and benefit from this new agreement. And a relevant aspect that we always want to highlight is the labor rights chapter incorporated into the agreement. It has to do with the fulfillment of internationally recognized labor rights, but also it has to do with things that are at the core of the Mexican government priorities. I'm sure Consul Borjón could help me elaborate more on this after the presentation. But of course, we also have regulations for fighting violence workers, and to protect migrant workers as well. And there are rules to prohibit imports of goods produced with forced and child labor. So very important, Mexico has a long tradition internationally with respect of the International Labor Organization. All these commitments are incorporated under the USMCA. We have also a binding commitment under a rapid response labor mechanism established in Annex 31A of the agreement. And we also have, things related to union representation. The Annex 23A really looks for specific commitments to ensure the representation of workers in collective bargaining. Very important, because this also is in constant, at the same level of the relevance of the labor reform that President López Obrador has put forward since the beginning of his administration. So the environmental protection chapter, as I told you, as the labor chapter are new in the agreement. They're not side letters anymore, but are incorporated. Very important for us as well. You know, we have to comply with the obligations of 7 international multilateral agreements. And there are things related with the ozone depleting substances, and to commitments to combat illegal wildlife trade and marine litter, and then promoting air quality and giving transparency. Very important for us. Here is, there's some commitments related to trade. So really our private sectors have to be very careful of complying with what the USMCA has to do on environment. Very important for us. Also in consonance with what President López Obrador has been stating as priorities for his administration. So the new chapter, it's one of our favorites, is the SMEs chapter. You know, every chapter, almost every chapter of the USMCA looks for the establishment of a committee, trilateral committees to work together on work plans. The SME is not the exception. Not only it provides for the establishment of a committee to strengthen competitiveness and promote business opportunities, but also to exchange best practices, to do training, to integrate the SMEs in the supply chain of the region and globally. And of course, the participation of SMEs in digital economy is one of the priorities of this chapter. It also sets for the establishment of a trilateral SME dialogue, very important, because here is where stakeholders can have a word on what the SMEs subcommittee is working on. So I'm sure that you know, the Department of Commerce will be, through the SBAs, should be reaching out to you as stakeholders, you know, to incorporate recommendations to the governments on how to best work on the SMEs, strengthening and maturing, no, in order to have them export to other countries of the region. So we in Mexico have a new platform for SMEs. We call them PYMEs. So we have a PYME platform. All of this information could be consulted in the USMCA, in the TEMEC website that we have in Economia. No, TEMEC is how we call the USMCA in Mexico. Very important as well is the chapter on anti-corruption. You know, it aims to prevent and combat bribery and corruption that affect the parties' trade and investment. They, the dispositions want to create and are willing to create the best business environment in the region. Companies are encouraged to adopt compliance programs intended to identify and combat corruption within their structures. It strengthens cooperation, coordination between authorities, and exchange of best practices. And of course, this chapter is subject to the dispute settlement mechanism of the treaty. Very important, because it also goes hand in hand with what President López Obrador has put as a core of his priorities in the government, to fight corruption. So we are very happy and eager to work to make this chapter work. Very important, as I told you, these agreements have to have teeth in order to guarantee that if any dispute should occur between governments or between the private sector and the government, there are means to resolve these controversies. So we have state-to-state trade remedies and an investor-state mechanism. I would not go through that one, but really is what gives us also the certainty that there are the mechanisms, the right mechanisms agreed by the 3 countries to arrange any dispute that should occur. This one is very interesting. There was, I'm sure that you're aware of all the heated discussions on how long should the USMCA last. At the end, it was agreed that it will be valid for 16 years, and it will have the possibility to be extended after the 6th year. You know? So the governments have to be aware of this, and they have to express in writing their intention to extend the treaty. No? Otherwise, we will have annual reviews starting at the 6th year of the USMCA into force, until we get to the 16th year, you know. So I think we really hope that this turns out to be a beneficial agreement for the three parties, and that we could have this framework for the next 16 years. And also it gives us a chance to see that if something is not working, there's always a mechanism to review it, you know, and to adjust it. So really quickly, you know, the commitment to the North American competitiveness was expressed by President López Obrador during his visit to Washington, D.C. on July 8th. You know, we're sharing this picture of the joint declaration by President Trump and President López Obrador. You know, that is the only visit that he has paid to any other foreign country. So we are really committed to North America. I'm showing you this graph just for you to see how big is North America. We have a population of almost 500 million people with a GDP of $26 trillion. FDI adding $323 billion, you know, representing 23.1% of the world FDI in 2018, you know. As for trade, North America traded with the world $6 trillion, 15.9% of the global trade. You know, we are considered the second global exporter in 2019. And when we talk about how much the three countries traded, you can see that it's a relevant number, $1.2 trillion, 20% of the regional total trade in 2019. So we really value the integration. Here are, you can see how foreign direct investment went under NAFTA in Mexico. You know, these are figures for Mexico's FDI. You see, you know, in a darker color, the USA FDI, and then Canada's and the rest of the world. No, I'll leave this for you to share, but mainly, you know, from the US, we received 277 billion, from Canada, 41 billion, you know, and when you add all those numbers from 1999 to March this year, we've registered $589 billion of foreign direct investments of Canada and the US in Mexico. And then if you want, as Consul Borjón was telling, if you want to see how we measure the average growth of trade in Mexico's trade during NAFTA, you can see that it grew by 70.5%. I'll leave this for you to analyze, because I know I don't have much of the time. But very important to highlight is that Mexico was a US top trading partner in 2019, selling 614 billion in goods, more than with China and with Canada. Our trade with Mexico and US, just giving another example of what Consul Borjón was telling, is equal to the trade of the US with Japan, Germany, South Korea, and Brazil combined. We have kept this position of being the first trading partner from January to July 2020. No, you see the numbers there. I won't stop on that, but you can see US imports and US exports and the country of origin. And of course, we see USMCA as a trade agreement, but also as a productive agreement. You know, we buy and sell together, we produce together to compete globally. You know, 38% of Mexican exports have 38% of US content is incorporated in any export of the auto industry in Mexico. Here we have a list of what products Mexico exports to the US: cars, computers, auto parts, trucks, crude oil, and what the US exports to Mexico: gasoline, auto parts, accessories, no, gas, computers, diesel, and the amount, no, the share of this. I'm sure that Consul Borjón has shown you this map on several occasions, but mainly it has to do with which states are the largest export markets. You can see them in brown, and then you can see the second largest export markets for 20 US states in green, and then in kind of pink, the states, the 3 states with the largest export market to the United States. Unfortunately, we don't have Utah on the map, but I'm sure that we will do what we can to have you be part of this this map of Mexico in the US. So I know agricultural products are a success story for of NAFTA, and it's a key sector for Mexico. No, so here I'm showing you how much Mexico and the U.S. traded in 2019, $47.5 billion in agricultural foods. No, and what's the ag trade of the U.S. When we deal with exports and imports. And then in the next slide, you'll see how key we are on this. No, you can see the U.S. imports in red, and then the countries where they come from: Italy, France, Brazil, and Alemania. So this is interesting because it's like what we trade with you is similar. What Italy, France, Ireland, Australia, Brazil, Singapore, Indonesia have to offer to the U.S. And then also, as our production, for example, of cars and computers could be complementary, it also is a case in our agricultural trade. So we have a list here of what we export to the US and what the US exports to Mexico. So, we really consider the agricultural trade, the bilateral agricultural trade, as a complementary one. Okay, so here is specifically what Utah represents for us. This information could be added to what Consul Borjón just shared to us, but we have that our bilateral trade with Utah, with the state of Utah, accounts for $5 billion and supports regional supply chains specialized in electronics, autos, minerals, and agriculture. What Utah exports to Mexico has to do, I won't go through the whole list, but auto parts, electronic boards, aircrafts, heaters, food preparations, medical instruments. And what Mexico exports to Utah is gold, tractors, silvers, auto parts, trucks, medical instruments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we really have a specific unit of economic intelligence, as I'm sure the Department of Commerce has as well, and the government of Utah should have, when we track what we trade and the amounts, because this information is key to provide to the private sector, to let them know of the opportunities that you can have if you export to the US, if you want to export something to Utah. This is how we see, and the data that we have on the Utah metropolitan area exports to Mexico. 2018 is the last information that we find out, but the value specifically of the metro area of Salt Lake City has a value of $327 billion, and it's a 3.40 share of the total exports, of the state of Mexico. And then the growth since 2006, we have like 80% growth of exports in those years. So now let me go super fast on this. I know we don't have much time and I'm taking a lot of your time, but this is important because I want to share with you that we have a trade policy focused not only in North America, primarily to North America. We also have other 12 free trade agreements with other 48 countries, that make us to have access to 1.3 billion consumers, 60% of the world GDP. In the map, you can see with which countries do we have these free trade agreements. And then when we want to show off what we have a solid infrastructure and logistic network. We have 172,000 kilometers of roads, where 62.4% of the exports move. We have railway tracks, more than 27,000. We have ports to move, that move almost 20% of Mexico's total exports. We have 76 airports, national and international, that move 4.3 of Mexico's total exports. I'm sure that this information has changed with the pandemic because, some airport, for example, air flights have been multiple, when we compare it to the transit through land ports of entry. So we have also competitive logistic costs. Here is how much is the shipping cost, $9. When you compare China to the US, Mexico to the US, it also has to do with geography and how near we are. But in the other side of the slide, you can see, for example, the number of days that the ship would take to select a destination from Mexico to New York to LA rather than to Yokohama. We have more than 50 ports of entry, land port of entry, that gives us like all the logistics that we need to move trade through North America. We have a very innovative and diverse industrial platform. We have a high complexity sectors, meaning that we are like a mature economy. You have the number there of the share of Mexican exports by economic complexity. This information is from 2018. I leave it here not to go into deep, And then other important thing is this data. We are the sixth largest world producer of vehicles. We were ranked 4th as exported worldwide in 2018. We are the 6th largest supplier of aircraft parts to the US. We are the 6th largest exporter of information technology, products and services in 2018. And we are the 8th largest exporter of medical devices worldwide. We have a competitive and cost-effective manufacturing sector. Here are examples, for example, on natural gas for industry, the global manufacturing cost, and how much do we represent. We have a young, competitive, and skilled workforce. The average age is from 30 to 49 years old. And we have a large share of graduates of, for example, of engineers graduates, in Mexico, 17% in Mexico compared to India, Brazil, South Africa, and Indonesia in 2016. And then where we see challenges and opportunities, of course, everything has to do and is related with the pandemic. We are working together, first of all, to implement the USMCA. Once we have it in place, there's daily work, intensive daily work inside our government, but together with Canada and the government of the US as well. So as to have the agreement in place and working correctly, having the committees meet and organize, and trying to see that things move forward. The Ministry of Economy in Mexico is the agency in charge of the implementation of the USMCA. We do that, but we do not do it alone. We do that hand in hand with SRE, for example, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also with other agencies, with Customs and with our Customs and Border Protection. We don't have that agency, but aduanas, and then we have, Sistema de Administración Tributaria and our Finance Ministry, with our Labor Ministry. So lots of things are going on. And what turned out to work for us, for all of us in North America in the beginning of the pandemic was, of course, to use TICS technology, to define protocols and conditions and to align strategic sectors for the 3 countries. So the entry into force of the USMCA, it goes in a parallel, in a parallel road with what we are doing and working together to make our essential sectors of the 3 countries work, to promote trade and not to facilitate trade and not to interrupt our value chains. Very important. So, and then we see it, as I told you, the TMEC of the USMCA as a key factor for the economic recovery of the 3 countries. We are now seeing the emergence of relocation, nearshoring, and decoupling. We really have an opportunity. What the pandemic has shown us as this is a good time to consider North American integration and to have the value chains and the suppliers moved from places far away in China and Vietnam, to really the region. And there's where Mexico has a lot to offer to both US and Canada. And that is one of the main priorities that the Ministry of Economy is working on, to relocate, and to near the sources of our suppliers, the supply chain for North American. We have developed several tools to let people know that our productive sectors, that our private sectors know what the USMCA is all about. I won't go into that, but we have a Centro de Consulta Técnica, a consultation center for the USMCA. We have our office, we have representatives of Economia in Washington, DC and in Ottawa, providing information on anything related to Mexico and the USMCA, anything related to your interest in for example, investing in our country or getting to know a counterpart, you know, to make businesses in North America. So that information will be available for you. I hope you can touch base with us, and if there's something that we can help you with, we will be more than happy. So this is the last slide of my presentation. I hope I didn't bore you a lot, and I'm ready for Miles' comments and Consul Borjón's comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lydia, for that. And we were not bored at all. We are honored for the opportunity to hear from somebody that was so involved with creating such an important treaty and an important document. So thank you for being with us. We're honored to benefit from your expertise. And we're very grateful for the work that you've done over a period of years to bring USMCA together, to represent Mexico so well, and to be such a great partner to our US trade officials who also are working very hard to pull this together. You know, very quickly, just a few initial thoughts from me. You know, Lydia, I loved how your slide where it said that we produce together to compete globally. You know, I've worked in both the Obama administration and the Trump administration. And for people following national security, foreign policy here in the United States, for many years there's been a conversation about a need to pivot to Asia. Usually that's in the context of, you know, drawing down some of our commitments in the Middle East, focusing more on Asia. But what I think we've seen over the past few years is this recognition that rather than pivoting to Asia, we got to pivot to North America. We need to focus on North America. We need to focus on shoring up our partnerships with Canada and Mexico, working to integrate the economies here in North America with a recognition that as we do that, we're going to be more competitive as a North American market with the rest of the world, whether that's Europe or Asia, South America, or anywhere else. And so USMCA is truly critical for the United States because it enables this new framework, a more integrated North American market that is going to lead to more prosperity for all three of our countries and make companies across North America, and as we're thinking today, especially here in Utah, more competitive, not just here at home or in North America, but in the rest of the world. And it's interesting to think of some of the dynamics that we've seen at play over the past couple of years and why the timing of USMCA is so important. I think it's important to note that we hear a lot in the news about China. Lydia, you had a few slides to show the relative importance of China versus our North American partners here. One additional data point is that we do 80% more trade from the United States with Canada and Mexico than we do with China, which again emphasizes that the center of gravity for trade here for the United States is right here in North America. It's not in China. And as we see this trend of increasing tension with China, at the same time, the pandemic demonstrating the importance of resiliency in supply chains, shorter supply chains, nearshoring and reshoring of manufacturing, the timing of USMCA could not have been better whatsoever. So we've got lots of experience and expertise on the call. I'm just looking right now at who happens to be at the top of the attendee list. I see Todd Bingham with the Utah Manufacturers Association, Callie Nelson with the Department of Agriculture. We've got life science companies, ag companies, consumer products companies, food companies, educational technology companies, professional services, other manufacturers. And so I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to hear from questions from our attendees and our participants today. So please, everybody, start punching into your questions in the chat function. Jose will moderate a Q&A here momentarily, but we want to make sure that we're all able to benefit from Lydia's expertise and that you're able to weigh in and get some answers to your questions. To kick things off, I just wanted to ask one question. You know, Lydia, you provided such a great overview of both what is in USMCA as well as the strategic context that we should be thinking about USMCA. You know, with the Utah companies that are listening in today, you know, they're looking at this information, they're trying to understand what it means for them, their industry, their companies. You know, do you have any advice, Lydia, on if you were a Utah company that was looking to take advantage of this updated, refreshed trade framework, what advice would you give to them to learn more about the very tactical, specific opportunities for them, and then where to reach out to engage in order to take advantage of these new opportunities?
Oh, thank you, Miles. Very good question. You know, what we have been finding out, we've been doing an outreach campaign in Mexico, through all the states, the 32 states in Mexico. And what we have found out is that there's a need for information. So first of all, that you get to know what the USMCA says. No, if we have these 10 new chapters, what are, you know, the new relevant aspects of the agreement, and that you know that mostly all trade between the three countries, except for agricultural products between US and Canada, and between some products between Mexico and Canada, agricultural products are not free of tariffs. Everything else is with no tax-free, no tariffs at all, and that there's a lot of opportunities on digital commerce. I would suggest that you really review that chapter. It's very important. It secures, it's a free flow, you know, of platforms with also with no tariffs at all. I think that logistics and SMEs and digital commerce is what you should be thinking of. You know, we've been seeing through the pandemic that these are the activities and economic, you know, the economic sectors that have been having successful stories. So I really be aware of what the agreement stands for, what are the new chapters and what do they provide, and then also, you know, reach out to your governments. You can reach out to our offices, to the consulate, of course. I'm sure Consul Borjón, I know him since he was a young boy, so I really know you have a very good consul representing the Mexican government. So you can reach out to the consul. You can reach out to our Centro de Consulta TEMEC as well. You know, but be informed. I think that's the main recommendation that I would give to you.
That's fantastic. That's great advice, Lydia. And I would just add for any companies, we have Jose is such a tremendous asset for us here in Utah. So we're grateful for his service, everything that he is doing. We're partnering very closely with him on a regular basis on many fronts to expand trade investment opportunities for Utah companies and vice versa for Mexican companies as well. In addition to that, as you are looking at opportunities in Mexico, please reach out to World Trade Center Utah. We can help you do market research. We can help you do with your market entry planning. We have grants available for small businesses where we can help offset some of the costs of exploring opportunities in Mexico. Maybe it's right now it's a little bit difficult to travel, but maybe it's, you know, translating your website or working on your CE marks, or maybe it's working on other ways to protect your intellectual property or to connect with people in Mexico. But we want to be here to help you both understand what is there, like Lydia was saying, and then to take action on that. And so we can be your partners on that front. I have many other questions, but I see a few popping up in the Q&A function. I failed to mention before, I just saw a question from Kelvin Colmore. He runs Bio Utah. He's on a member of the board of directors at World Trade Center Utah. And again, just a phenomenal business leader representing an industry that has already doing a lot with Mexico, but has an opportunity to grow. And so, Jose, at this point, I'll go ahead and pass it back over to you to moderate the Q&A session.
Oh, thank you, Miles, and thank you, Lydia. That was a wonderful presentation. I'll ask also Hannah to help me out because they're popping out some great questions. For example, Todd, our president of Utah Manufacturing Association, asks you, Lydia, what do you see as the greatest area of potential growth within the manufacturing sector in Mexico with the new USMCA? Well, how do you see our strengths there, Lydia, in our manufacturing? And if we can join another one, could you develop a little bit more and discuss intellectual property protections under USMCA for pharmaceuticals versus medical devices? This is of great interest for Utah companies which are leaders in medical devices, but what are our options there? Manufacturing and intellectual property in pharmaceuticals and medical devices. Lydia, what do you think?
Thank you very much for the interest, and thanks for the questions, Consul Borjón. Miles, thank you for your comments. You know, when we talk about manufacturing, we really see a lot of opportunity in the automotive sector. We have important clusters in the automotive sector in the border, but also in the Bajío region in the center of the country. And what we are seeing is in this specific automotive sector is the opportunity of having Mexican SMEs incorporating to the supply chains, not so substituting the imports from China that we get from external suppliers, manufacturing the goods in Mexico, auto parts that were that came from other countries in Asia, to have them produced in Mexico. So we really have a lot of opportunity there. Also, we have a new program. The Maquiladora program was changed for an IMEX program that has incorporated innovation into our production. So in the specific case of Mexico, there are lots of opportunities dealing with aerospace and automotive sectors and IT as well. One of the 3 pillars of our trade agenda have to do with innovation, with inclusion, with innovation, and with the diversification of projects. Then when we talk about IP, you know, what the agreement sets for in intellectual property rights you know, it comes to an agreement to protect the innovators, to protect, and it agrees specific. I don't want to go through specifics because you have this in the presentation, but mainly they protect the pharmaceutical products, and they protect the innovation, and they set a specific time frames for liberalization and for the patents. So innovation is the core of the IP rules on the agreement, and is one of Mexico's priorities as well. And then when we are talking about which products, you were telling me what products does Utah sell from Mexico? I was seeing this question. Let me go back to my PowerPoint because, you know, Mexico exports to Utah gold, tractors, and silver. Those are the main 3 products. And what Utah exports to Mexico is, you know, auto parts, electrical boards, and aircraft engineers. So that's what we see. If we are thinking on where are some opportunities for bilateral trade, I would say that there's a lot that Utah SMEs could do together with Mexican SMEs, to incorporate your productions into the value chains, into the regional value chains of North America. So I leave my comments there right now. Thank you.
Yes, and remember, Mexico is the #1 source of imports for Utah because of what Lydia was saying, you know, how critical our manufacturing industry and other sectors are for the companies. So that's also a great opportunity. And what we're looking is partnering with Utah companies. And I would emphasize this: partnering is critical for the region and as an opportunity for Utah and for Mexico. For our specific demands also of our industries, we need suppliers with high quality, and that's what also can offer Utah. I see another question. This is more technical, Lydia, but it can also gives us a little bit understanding of the numbers. For example, how do you measure the ranking of the states in that general map? Luis Farfan, he's importing goods to Utah, but his port of entry is Texas, as in many places, you know, the port of entry will be another immediate. How does that reflect? Is Utah, Mexico business undercounted in your opinion, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, it's very difficult to keep track, you know, of commerce once it crosses the border, especially through the land ports of entry. We know, you know, where it crossed. For example, in Texas, we can do, and it has to do with the data that we take out from the U.S. Census Bureau. So, you know, we should go and see the metrics on how they, you know, develop this kind of information. But yeah, it's really difficult to have that specific information, because it deals with the first port of entry where the product landed when it entered into the US. So yes, if a product comes out through a Texan port of entry, it would be registered as a product that stays in Texas. So yes.
We have a couple of interesting questions on agriculture, also very relevant for Utah. Utah is a very diversified economy, but also very competitive in certain agricultural products. For example, how do you envision agricultural trade growth between Mexico and the US, Utah? Or what are the new areas of opportunity in our trade? And processed agricultural products, duty-free are only primary products such as cattle, grain, hay. Are those only the products that are duty-free, the processed agricultural products, or is it another one?
No, Mexico-US agricultural trade is all free of tariffs. When we find out, when we, and I'll share the list with you when I share the presentation, when I said that we were complementary markets, I really do mean that. Mexico exports to the US fresh products, and wine and meats, but US exports from Mexico corn and soybeans and dairy and pork and beef. So, specifically when we talk about Mexico and Utah, I don't know the information. I thought I had the information for you, but I can find out that for you, how the agricultural trade relation is between our two countries. But mainly it has to do with the season where the products come in Mexico and the climate in Utah, and then, finding the correct cycle to have complementary markets. We really have our agricultural export products are of high quality. There are lots of opportunities to invest in the agricultural sector as well. Mexico is working to incorporate technology into agriculture. So if there's a specific interest, for example, in investing in Mexico, yeah. And then the other thing is that what we export to the US, it's really quality product. We have it's one of our things that worry us lately. I'm sure that you're aware of the discussions that are being held by productive sectors in Florida and in Georgia against Mexican agricultural products. So that's one of the issues that keeps us busy, very, very busy, because what we always say is that we have a new framework, a new collaboration, a new area for North America. And understanding that there are political matters important, the electoral process in the US going on, and that Mexico always comes up as, as a target for politicians to gain votes. We are really very worried about assuring that agricultural collaboration and commerce and trade between our two countries is free of tariffs, and it's not subject to any political scenario, no? So I'm sure that I will be finding out the specific information for Utah and sharing it with you, Consul.
Okay, thank you. And we will share it, of course, through World Trade Center, because there's a great interest in this specific issue of not only raw primary product, but also processed agricultural products, which have a value added. How does it reflect in duty or not? What I can say is that if you were happy with what you were doing with NAFTA in agriculture, you pretty much have it the same way with USMCA, that's for sure. So that's the good news there for all those in the agricultural business sector. Hannah, I don't know, have you seen another question that around?
I've got one more question, if that's okay. Lydia, I appreciate your overview of the SME chapter. That's such an important component to the trade agreement. You talked about the SME Affairs Committee, the dialogue, and I love this focus on how can we work collectively to help increase the competitiveness of SMEs across North America. I'd be curious for your thoughts on what are the other benefits for small businesses. I'm thinking that the de minimis values being increased, some of the e-commerce, a lot of small businesses, they're buying and selling off of e-commerce platforms. What thoughts do you have about small businesses here in Utah and what this new chapter means for them and how they're able to do business with Mexico?
You know, I think that, yeah, that's one of our favorite chapters. And the best way is, yeah, to have information on how to establish, you know, to search for buyers in Mexico, for example. Let me tell you what we're doing. We have developed, and we are about to have a virtual business roundtable for women, for SMEs led by women in North America. So it will take place, for example, from October 26th to October 30th. We are looking for buyers in the US. We have 150 Mexican entrepreneurs, Mexican SMEs already registered in Mexico, and we are looking for buyers in the US. So maybe this could be an example. We can take it as a pilot project. No, if you, Miles, and your organization will be willing to collaborate with us, maybe you can help us with, you know, finding US buyers for our Mexican products. So that's the way to do it, no? To start sharing, you know, opportunities, to start sharing best practices. You know, we know that we have lot to learn from the US, lot to learn from Canada as well. You've gone a long way maturing and preparing SMEs, and that's what we want to take advantage of. That is what the chapter provides for: collaboration, you know, cooperation, and an annual work plan. So we are thinking, you know, that this SME chapter will be meeting today. They are having a meeting, the coordinators of the SME chapter, to find out the ways on how to incorporate stakeholders into the discussions. Because the main priorities for the committees of the USMCA is to keep the agreement going on, to revising any obstacle or any doubt or any misinterpretation of the agreement, no? But specifically under the SMEs chapter, it's a collaboration, you know, chapter. So there's a lot of things to do. And I'm sure that they will be defining soon. I can let you know via our consul as well, how things are going at the federal level with those committee. But if you can please start helping us finding some US buyers, Utah buyers for our virtual roundtable for women SMEs, that would be excellent.
That's
and
great.
We'd
love to be supportive of that effort. And, you know, we're working on our 2021 plan right now. It's always tough to plan during a pandemic because it's going to change. But we are very focused and eager to get on a trade mission to Mexico as soon as we possibly can. And so we'd love to be supportive of what you're doing there in October. And then we'd love to take a bunch of Utah companies to Mexico as soon as we're able to do so, and would lean on your support to help us find opportunities for these companies to increase their sales in Mexico.
Of course, and we don't have to wait until the pandemic is over. Maybe if you want us to organize specific, you know, mission of Utah, we can do it virtually. We can, you know, Consul, we can do something together.
Yes, and World Trade Center is doing a lot of this virtual trade missions, and very successfully, thanks to Hannah and Miles. And so that's an open invitation that we can develop. Obviously, there is a growing interest because of what we've been discussing. Another question popping up is on the issue of technology companies in Utah. This is a growing sector, Lydia, with e-commerce, software. So Troy tells us and asks, well, what are the conduits in the USMCA or resources for helping this kind of business, e-commerce and technology companies? How can they be enticed to do more investment in Mexico and take their technologies with us? I would say that protecting intellectual property is a big draw for these companies. What else do we have to offer companies that are interested in doing this business in Mexico?
You know, we have an economic intelligence unit inside the Ministry of Economy. So I can provide you with a list of opportunities that we can see for these companies. Of course, digital commerce is what we are investing, what we are betting for. There's where we see lots of opportunities, and maybe, you know, we can share best practices. We can put you together, or we can organize another session just like this, but focused on IT and on digital commerce. Any interest that you might have, you know, we have the Association of Internet in Mexico, and I'm sure that you have these kinds of organizations as well, specifically focused on these sectors. So we can, of course, reach out to them and see if there's some interest in having any collaboration with a list of companies that you could provide us, Consul.
Yes, and let me put it out. There's a dirty little secret there. Thanks to USMCA, many engineers, Mexican engineers, which as Lydia was showing, are top of the line, really, if we compare with engineers of other places in the world, in the US, China, India. They can come here and work with US companies, with Utah companies, thanks to the TN visa that, as Lydia pointed at the beginning of the presentation, is still a very important way to move professionals through the region. So that's very important for this US companies that are growing. You know, we have great talent and we want to share it, not give it all. We want people to come and have that experience and then come back to Mexico and perhaps start up a company. But this movement is a great possibility also that should be developed. And I know a couple of companies here in Utah are doing that very successfully.
Yes, and maybe we can do a follow-up session, Consul, incorporating this interest of businesses related to technology. There is a lot of things that the USMCA offers, also dealing with telecommunications and financial services. So once we identify the specific request and the specific interest, I will be more than happy to put together, you know, the team in Economia and the interested parties in the private sector in Mexico, no, to do some kind of collaboration and some kind of synergies. I will be
well, that is great, and we appreciate, Lydia, your offer. That's more job and work for us, Hannah, but we'd love to help out there. So we see there are different questions on the website. We will be sharing that information afterwards, you know, for this event, so that everybody can have it. But that's something for us very important, and we appreciate. Hannah, how are we on time, and or are there any other questions we should address?
I'm not seeing any other questions right now. So if you have any final thoughts, Lydia, about this relationship between Utah and Mexico, we'd love to hear them.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Hannah. So I'm really happy to have had this opportunity to have this conversation with you. Thank you, Consul, for thinking in Economia, for considering me as a speaker. Thank you, Hannah, and Miles for the time and for setting all these to get together. So mainly I want to offer the Mexican government's help, support, you know, anything that we can do for you. We can start by sharing the information on the Rueda de Negocios for Mexican women in order to see if there are any Utah buyers interested in being part of this event. And also just reaching out, Consul, whenever you tell me on doing another session on IT and how we can get Mexican and Utah businesses together. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes, and from my side, thank you, Lydia. It's always a pleasure. I know you're now very busy. Lydia usually has like 4 or 5 presentations a day, sometimes with our president in the event. So we have a rock star with us today, and it's really an honor. And we really want to take advantage of her openness for continue offering this kind of information service. As you've seen, it is such a complex, but there are very specific sectors we have identified today that we can develop. Agriculture, IT, that are of interest and relevance for Utah, and that we will could put together specific presentations, always through the partnership with Miles, Hannah, and the World Trade Center for the benefit. This is a win-win relationship. Remember that for both countries, for the companies in both Utah and Mexico, and for the people in both places. So that is what motivates us. I think it's real opportunity and a very modern agreement that we need to take advantage and obviously understand it. And that's the positive, what we have achieved today. Thanks to Lydia, thanks to Mal, and thanks to you, Hannah.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you, Consul Jose and Lydia, for joining us today. And thank you all of you for attending. We look forward to continuing this relationship and expanding more. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.